So, do you go with the cookie cutter build that everybody else runs, or do you run with the build that you like the most because ain't nobody can tell you how to play?
I run with the build that I like the most because I want to buff collapsing stars as much as I can.
Well, I mean, do you really
Yeah.
want me to kick your butt on? I think we did Incarnation's DOC on Iron Con. Do you really
Look,
want me to kick your
man,
butt again?
I messed up my second CA. Alright? Look, man, I used it on
Why were
cooldown. I
we
didn't
like
save it for dogs.
80k DPS higher than everybody like 2 minutes
We talk
into the
about
fight?
this too much, and no one else on Earth will understand what we're talking about.
Okay, let's just do a quick throwback then.
My god.
Bologna and I did a shitter build because we thought it'd be funny because Iron Con's a joke after you've killed him like 18 times. So
It
we
was a
did
pretty
this build.
challenging fight.
It was the very, very last time you're actually going to be able to kill that boss because I think the next tier was
Yeah, something like that.
and they were changing DOC.
Yeah,
was
that's
the
what it
other
was. Yeah, they were reworking DOC.
So we played with Juma Scenarios DOC, and that was the one where you cast Healing Touch and you get 2 extra dot casts.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Your bonus casts. You get bonus
Yeah.
casts to it. That's like Matrix.
But there was a really great interaction with CA where the CA would
Healing Touch dot, Healing Touch dot, Healing
yeah.
Touch.
So you would healing touch CA dot, healing touch dot, and then you would dot the other two mobs.
Don't forget the Nature Swiftness randomly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, nature swiftness healing touch. Yeah, that's what it was. You would healing touch CA dot, nature swiftness healing touch dot. And then you would dot the other two mobs. That's where I messed up, is because I used CA on cooldown that pull. You used it when all 4 mobs were up, which obviously is the right thing to do, and I was just an idiot. I was so flustered that, like, I didn't want to mess up my rotation because it was new.
Well, this was because you weren't in Midwinter, so you weren't as good as you are now.
Obviously, yeah. I was a lowly
You've learned
baddie
well.
then. Yeah. I've learned. I, like, go back and watch my old videos, and I look at how much I used to move while I was doing a fight. It's incredible. Like, I didn't think I moved a lot back then, but I definitely, like, stutter stepped and had unnecessary movement and stuff like that.
You want to do the ultimate shitter thing I've done? Do you remember Heroic Cho'Gall? Fight? Did you ever do Heroic Cho'Gall?
The mushroom things, right? You would just drop mushrooms.
No, it was much worse for me. I did nothing but Sunfire spam all.
Yeah, that's what you would do.
We needed
Sunfire spam, right?
because we needed the damage on the ads. So I stuck in Solar Eclipse the entire.
Did you not mushroom?
I mushroomed the shit out of those blobs.
Well, that was the best thing to do, was to Sunfire spam and to mushroom. Then that was like how.
Yes, it was like a DPS. 2k DPS loss actually, yeah, but that's mostly for Cho'Gall damage, which we didn't need. We needed death to.
I would like to see mushrooms make a cameo in this expansion. I would like mushrooms to be a thing. I entertained the idea. I think.
It's a lot of buttons for what it is, though, and we honestly do not have that much left.
Well,
obviously we have keybinds for it, but it's a lot of buttons.
I entertain the idea of dropping a mushroom that you would like Starfire into or Wrath into to build it up. No. Well, just kind of like a healing mushroom or whatever. You would just like store damage into it, and then you could explode it whenever you want. So that way you would like. You wouldn't do damage now. It would kind of be like Soul Cap, but it doesn't have to be a damage modifier, where you would just like store damage into it, and then later on you would release it on like an ad, a priority ad. So you could store up like, 10 million worth of damage, and then poop on the ad. That would be overpowered though, and you would stack Moonkins for certain things.
You'd stack Moonkins now for everything. We're just that good. Well, DOC. I love that talent before it got changed. So I'm just kind of sad with it. Anyway, so typically the tuning with Blizzard is everything's within 5%, and people kind of go, "Oh no, that's not the right talent you picked right there. SimCraft says otherwise."
I'm resetting your volume.
Sorry. SimCraft says use this talent because it's the best talent for DPS, and people go, "Okay, thanks SimCraft," and they do that. Then they perpetuate the idea that you have to take that talent because they're not scared, but they're really hostile against people who say that you should always go with, for example, Incarnation. If you deviate from standard, you are a shitter. You are bad, and you should feel bad. And in
Yeah, I
reality,
like the
stellar
idea of
flare is just there. It's like right there on multi-target, like within 2% in most cases.
yeah, I think that everyone who plays this game should definitely think about why they're choosing certain things. You know, don't just pick a build because someone said it's the best. Like, pick it because it makes the most sense to you, or like, you know, do your own math or your own testing and see what works best for you. And obviously, that's not going to work for every player. I don't have a choice. I have to pick what's best, right? Otherwise, we don't kill the boss. So, not everyone raids at a level. If you don't raid in like the top 50 US or top 20 US, you can probably just pick whatever you want and you'll be fine. If you don't kill the boss, it's not
Though
because you
there
didn't
is
pick
an
the right
argument
talents.
saying you should take the best one because you're not as good.
Well,
And
yeah.
to which I say, okay, you still have to get better. You still have that room to improve. Whereas if you're already playing, not obviously you can play better, but if you're already playing the best you can possibly play, your only option is to switch talents into something that's better.
I would say picking other talents in order to become more fluent with the spec is only a good thing.
Agreed?
Just like there's no real reason to have alts. If you're a balanced druid and all you will ever play in raid is a balanced druid, then you don't need to have any other characters. But leveling other characters and learning them and mastering them is just more game knowledge. It puts yourself into other situations where you can then learn from those situations and like become a better player as a result. And so being more fluent with game knowledge or your class or your spec is healthy, I think.
So would you say that you need to learn not all the builds and combinations of talents, but understand
Just
what you like to
recognize,
play and what is
yeah,
good in a certain situation versus
yeah.
another talent?
If you can look at it and say, all right, shooting stars gives me a lot of astral power. Well, collapsing stars consumes a lot of astral power. Maybe there's some synergy here. If you can reach that conclusion by yourself, then you're on the right track.
And you're better than like half the player base right there.
Yeah, probably.
It's not saying everybody's bad, it's just saying that statistically speaking,
You should
half the people are worse than the other half.
you should form your own opinions on things and weigh your opinion against quote experts' opinion because experts in WoW are very
Oh, you're treading a careful line right here.
we're I don't even include myself in this. I'm not an expert.
You're in midwinter.
Oh man, yeah, I guess I am now, huh? Uh, like, don't just like blindly follow whatever other people say. I guess is the thing. There have been a lot of instances where theorycrafters are wrong.
Well, that's the nature of the game. I've been wrong multiple times. I just tell people
Yeah.
they're wrong until they prove me to be wrong. It works out really well. It's
Yeah.
not that I want them to prove me wrong. I would hope they don't, because you like being right.
Yeah.
But I want to see how they got to their conclusions. That way, I can make a better choice and actually create more scenarios to consider.
It's that awful thing during math where the teacher made you show your work.
I just told them to look at my notes. I brought in like literally 30 pages of notes for a.
I would.
The class was online, and attendance was taken in the actual school. So I never showed up to any of the lectures, and I still scored one of the highest because my stack of notes was so thick it had literally every question.
Classic.
It was fantastic. My teacher.
I would never show my work, and it would always piss my teachers off. I would just walk up with the answer, and it would be like a really complicated problem, and I would just do it all in my head.
You know what's really sad though? Now Excel shows all my work for me, so I can see what I went wrong. But it's really, 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 really hard to decipher.
What were we talking about? Form your own opinions.
Yeah, form your own opinions, and then like why theorycrafters are wrong sometimes. And the only reason why they're wrong, not necessarily because SimCraft is wrong or the testing parameters are off, it's because you can't factor in your I guess the comfortability would be the right word. How comfortable you are with the spec. I can be playing the easiest spec ever.
So
and if I struggle with something, I'll suck at it.
With WAD, is you would talk to me a lot about. I mean, you didn't even have a subscription, right?
No, not for a while.
So it's harder for you to imagine where everything is actually the best, because so many of our talents are going to be fight dependent. So it's hard to say what talent is the best, because when when someone asks me what talents are the best, I ask them for what fight. And it's going to always be that way. So I mean, you can write up a boss, like individual boss guides dictating which talents are best, but even then, sometimes it depends on your raid comp and how much damage allocation you guys have to each target and how much AoE or single target you guys have in your raid. Like, it's a lot more fluid than what talent is best for this fight, or what talent is best.
One of the best parts about not knowing what's going on is I don't have to worry about, oh, this fight better here, this fight's better here. I can just go at it and say, all right, where would it be better? Where would I consider it to be better?
Yeah,
and then
you can
where
say,
does it apply?
Leave.
Right, and then where does it apply? Which fight would this be best for? And
yeah,
then
so that's
we
why
can
a
go
lot
test
of times you would come to me and just be like, all right, Bologna, Starfall is worth it on 2 targets. And even after Starfall got nerfed, it was like, Starfall is still kind of worth it on 2 targets if it's there for 10 seconds or whatever. And I would be like, okay, well, that works for this fight, and this fight, but it doesn't work for this fight, even though there's like 2 targets or whatever.
And I would go, great. Also, can you go test something for me?
Then I'd be like, it doesn't work, and their counter's not resetting anyways.
I wish I kept working on that. It's fun. Anyway, I tried to do an add-on for, what is it, CTC? Yeah, CTC.
I don't know, man.
Whatever it's called. That didn't work out. I couldn't get the counter right.
Taking knowledge that, or taking information that Theorycrafters apply, and then, I had a professional word and I've lost it. Using it, applying it as you see fit. This point has lost a lot of value in the past 10 seconds.
I think what you're trying to say is that if you see something that a Theorycrafter says, and you try to apply it to the gameplay itself, sometimes it does not work out. However, you could always find out where it goes wrong and bring that information back. Not to the player, you're not going to talk to the Theorycrafter again, because nobody ever does. Nobody's ever talked about it, unfortunately.
Take whatever they say, and then I lost it again. Jesus, is that late already?
No, it's only 10 o'clock here.
I know.
It's only 11:30.
Take their knowledge and then put it into situations where you see fit as a result of what they say. Like, take into consideration, but make your use your own best judgment for a lot of things. And that's going to be a lot more important at expansion launch, where everything is not completely set in stone. There's a lot of hot fixes and changes that are happening. You know, they can buff and nerf us, 6 times in the first month of the expansion. But
or give us some random 25% buff at the very start of the expansion, just like,
or halfway through progression or some shit. It's mostly just going to be.
You can't have shamans be good during progression.
Yeah, exactly. What? You want us to nerf Windwalkers like 8 times during High Maul? Got it. It's like so much of this is going to be like up in the air until the dust settles from expansion launch.
Definitely.
And they're probably making a guide on like a boss by boss, making an encounter specific guide is going to be pretty hard because things are subject to change.
So one last point before we move on. Theorycrafters often don't use enough burst windows, so whether it be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever. One of the issues there is you have to consider the other players in the raid.
Yeah.
You could have the best AoE, but if you have a Fury Warrior in your group, you're not getting any AoE.
That's true. Yeah. It's really important where like on Archimond is just a great example because it's a good fight and has a lot of different elements. It has cleave, it has kind of AoE at some points. It has single target. Archimond and Gorefiend are just like great examples of damage control. And, Gorefiend specifically is like, you can have 3 Moonkins in your raid, but do you really need, you get 3 Moonkins and an Unholy Death Knight. Do you really need that much damage on ads? Probably not. So maybe your raid leader says, hey, we don't want you to use Starfall on this fight or your Starfall trinket, and you say, okay, I'm going to swap to a different trinket, and you have to change your gameplay around that, and the other Moonkins are going to have to change their gameplay around that too. They're going to have to keep more of an eye on ads to make sure they're actually dying with less Starfalls.
You have to play to your role again.
Yeah, like on Archimond, we were having a problem where dogs weren't dying fast enough, and it felt awkward. So there were a couple pulls where we said, okay, we're gonna have DKs go unholy just for dog damage to see if that kind of helps movement and helps lessen the chaos of things, because there are times where you're standing there with shackles or you're standing there with rot and you can't move from the dogs because you'll fuck over other people with rots, right? So you don't want to move during rot, but you're going to get silenced if you keep casting, so you have to sit there and not do anything. So we said, alright, we'll see if we can do a little bit more dog damage. We'll have our DKs go unholy. It's just kind of like, it's not always going to be as drastic as going from Frost to Unholy. Sometimes it'll be, just, alright, instead of Collapsing Stars, we want you to have, Astral Communion, It'll be, like as Cyous said, you have to really play to your raid's strengths and weaknesses for a lot of fights, especially the more challenging ones. I think that's really going to shine through with the Guardian and Resto affinity.
I think the Guardian affinity might be better than you think. I also think the Resto affinity will be slightly better for non-PvE purposes.
Sure.
But, that has yet to be seen, and there is some testing I have to do with frenzied regions.
But again, if your healers aren't that great, maybe having Swiftmend will be good, depending on the fight. It's really...
No, your healers are always the fault. They better be good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right,
yeah, finding...
Go ahead.
I'm done.
No, so am I. You had a last point to make.
I don't have any points.
Oh.
I'm just...
So what you're saying is,
idiocy.
Play the way you want to play. If you want to play better, learn more builds, not necessarily which one's the best one, but understand which build is better for each situation that you might be put in.
Improve upon your game knowledge is a really great way to improve as a player. Learn...
Okay. That sums mine up, basically.
Yeah. Learn other specs, their strengths and weaknesses, and their capabilities, and learn the fight. Learn the fights really well, really in depth.
Alright, so next one is going to be casting on the move. I'm going to turn off said stream again, then we'll start that up again.
There's another one.
This one will be fast. This one's going to be like 5 minutes.
We already covered Stellar Drift.
No, this is casting on the move and helping to evaluate it, not just moving.
Fine.
Get it? We can use it for an all-purpose channel, I guess.